So welcome everyone to this evening's webinar, where we're focusing on supporting families and parents and carers and helping you really support your loved ones in terms of eating disorder recovery. And I'm Dr. Bev Murray, and I'm founder of the Eating Disorder Psychologist, where we work with young people, adolescents, parents, carers, adults, to help support them alongside their eating disorder recovery journey. And we have two presenters here this evening, both therapists also specializing in eating disorders, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves. This is Leslie Kaliko and Anita Summers.
My name's Leslie Kaliko, and I'm an integrative psychotherapist, and I've been working with eating disorders for the last 5 years or so, usually in an inpatient setting, but I now work for the eating disorder psychologist, and I work privately as well.
And I'm Anita Summers. I'm a systemic family therapist, and I have worked in the field of eating disorders since 2004. I worked in an inpatient unit, and then I ran an intensive outpatient program for individuals struggling with eating disorders in California. And then I've worked for the Eating Disorders Service, and I've worked with individuals with eating disorders privately since 2018.
Thank you both. So just before we begin, I just wanted to say that in case there's any technical difficulties whatsoever, or slides not showing up in the way they should, just to let you know that the webinar is being recorded, so you're going to have access to the recordings anyway. And anything that hasn't been addressed or answered in any of these webinars, if you please send me an email, and I'll happily endeavor to make sure that we answer that in following webinars.
Sounds good. Well, welcome everyone. So I'm going to be presenting today, and then Leslie will be inputting as well into what are the topic today. I wanted to talk about, kind of what eating disorders in teens, kind of what's sometimes what are eating disorders, what symptoms or what sort of things to look out for. I wanted to share a few scenarios at first that maybe some of you parents can relate to. You can think about a young gentleman named Dean who's 15, noticing that he's doing more restricting in his eating, maybe doing a lot of exercise, very focused on muscle. He's wearing a lot of clothes to sort of sweat when he uses exercise. He's frequently looking at his physique in the mirror. You might notice that he's going to the bathroom after he eats. So that's what kind of one scenario of somebody that possibly has an eating disorder. Another scenario is a young lady named Rebecca who's 17. Maybe she's got recently into yoga, recently eating a vegetarian diet. She looks like she has a clean and healthy lifestyle. And then the parents find out that she's actually been doing some binging and purging when they were unaware of it. So those are kind of two different scenarios that one might see of a teen who has an eating disorder. And it's important because not all eating disorders look alike, and there's a lot of myths around eating disorders. I wanted to walk through the maybe different eating disorders that exist in what we call the DSM-5, which is it's based on the American Psychological Association, but it's a giant book of diagnosis. But it's really important to recognize that not all eating disorders neatly fit in the different criteria. So going to the next slide, because one might be having kind of what's happening to my teen, and do they have an eating disorder, or what's kind of going on? You might just notice different changes in eating patterns, but their sleeping patterns. Maybe they're becoming more irritable, more anxious, and kind of not quite knowing what's happening. You're just knowing that there's a change that's happening. In terms of types of eating disorders, so one is binge eating disorders, and that is seen more common among males and adults, where there is a lot of focus on dieting and sort of kind of pressure. You might notice that per individual is restricting. but then over time only can do that for a short period of time, and then they're eating a large amount of food in a short period of time. But there's a lot of pressure, so the person who has a binge eating disorder feels is thinking about dieting a lot and trying to restrict, but can only sort of hold that for a short period of time. And then it becomes this feeling out of control when they kind of engage in binging.